Hi, so welcome to this week's Word of Warcraft, and there are a few things to talk about this week. There's something that happened basically yesterday's the guild Vodka announced that they were stepping back from raiding. Now there have been a number of high-profile guilds have done this. I've not really talked about this. I don't really keep tabs on. You can't help but be aware, especially when you're into mythic raiding, of the comings and goings of some of the most influential raiding guilds, and Vodka is certainly that. It has raided at a consistently high level for a number of years. Not as high a level now as it was doing a few years ago, but still bloody high level by anyone's standards. So why would I talk about this? Well, there's a couple of reasons. One is that the reason they're disbanding is actually more in tune with the reason why guilds do disband from time to time, completely different to the reason why a lot of guilds have been disbanding in Warlords of Draenor, but I'll go over that in a minute. But the other one, me personally, as a Retribution Paladin, what is quite concerning is that our main Theory Crafter raids with Vodka. Now, there are a number of other Theory Crafters, and I don't wish to disparage the work that they do, but Sol Saskara is a king amongst Theory Crafters, not only putting in the work that he does, but also the fact that he very much engages with the community, doesn't look down on other people. You can imagine it's quite easy for some people to be doing all this work, and then they see someone on a forum saying something a bit stupid, and they just, dismiss them. And Sol Saskara doesn't do that. Really doesn't look down on people. Is very reasonable as well. Isn't, right, I want it this way and this is the way it should be, and if you try and do it any other way, then that's bad. Isn't like that at all. Very accommodating. When he realises that developers with whom he's in contact with are dead set on something, starts to think, okay, well, how can we make it better? Greater Blessings was a classic example. Quite clear that developers are insisting on these Greater Blessings. So Sol Saskara was saying, okay, so let's see how we can make them a bit better. Now, the problem is how this relates to Vodka. I mean, over the years, I've known a number of guilds. I've been in a couple of guilds that have disbanded. And the reason that Vodka have is quite common and has been ever since, well, not quite day one. You don't disband on day one. No one notices. But certainly since late vanilla, where the leadership of a guild decides they're not going to play anymore. And either no one is able or willing to take on the mantle. Now, sometimes what happens, if it's a case that they're not able to, maybe whoever holds the guild still wants to keep that guild, they just don't want to raid anymore, then maybe those members just go off and form their own guild. Or maybe it is just that there is no one able to step up and take over, in which case people go their separate ways. With a couple of exceptions, sorry. In any guild where that happens, you always find a couple of players who are, often really good players, and also seemingly very happy with the game, suddenly stop as well. And because I think they sometimes reevaluate their playing of the game, and sometimes they just come to the conclusion what they actually was really enjoying was raiding with those people that they'd been raiding with for the last few years. And if they're going to go off and do it with a complete group of strangers they don't know at all, maybe that won't be as fun. So there is a real risk in Sol Saskara being one of those people. And I hope he doesn't. I hope he stays. But if he does decide to stop playing Warcraft, and there might be a number of reasons to do that. Of course, being a Retribution Theory Crafter is no mean task. It's a constant, I wouldn't say battle, but it is a constant discussion on a very fundamentally philosophical basis, I think, with developers. I'm not saying in a way that no other spec experiences, but certainly that a lot don't. And recently as well, I remember him replying to on a thread on the US forums. More about that in a minute. And then a developer, I think it might have been Calgan, good old Calgan, knows how to wind up rets. Said something that was quite disrespectful, in actual fact, quite disrespectful towards Sol Saskara in a way that shouldn't have been the case, given that he is in direct contact with developers and should know full well that it was an out of order thing to say. So I think there might be a few things there. And the retribution spec will be poorer for his loss if he does decide. Even if, another Theorycraft Draw 2 decides to step up and take on the actual theory crafting side of it, I don't think there'll be anyone who is as good within the whole retribution community as he has. So he will be greatly missed if he goes, and I hope he doesn't. I really do. And which brings me on to a couple of things. One is the way, I mean, we know that a lot of guilds have disbanded in Warlords of Draenor, some very good ones as well as some less competitive ones. And as I say, it very much used to be quite common that, the leader of a guild, the one who sort of runs everything, says, do you know what, I need to go on something else. Maybe it's something in their personal life, maybe a change of job prevents them raiding, maybe they have a kid that sort of prevents it, or just have a family in general. Maybe they just get bored of it, or maybe it just becomes too much. And they stop and no one's really able to take over and the guild disbands. Some people, as I say, go, okay, well, I played with these people for a few years. I won't enjoy it with other people, so I'll stop as well. And everyone else just goes their own separate way. So when you recruit and you're sort of swooping on these guilds, see who, if you get in there quickly enough, see who's available and see if you can nick some of their good players. What's happened a lot in Warlords of Draenor, and I've mentioned this before, but I haven't mentioned it for a while, so I'll talk about it again, is you swoop into these guilds and you can sometimes find out immediately, you go straight in. And you find there's actually slim pickings. And it's not because you're too late. It's because the reason the guild disbanded is not because the guild leadership stopped. It's because everyone else did. There's actually been a number of guilds, and I've been in one, where actually the guild leadership were there and committed. It's just the rest of the guild fell apart, and you can't recruit fast enough for certain, because, let's face it, Blizzard likes to use the term, and it's a good term to use, like bring the player, not the class, but it's not actually the case. It's really not the case. There are some classes and specs that you sort of need, otherwise you give yourself a really hard time. And if you don't have them, especially if you're trying to compete at a high world rank, you are in trouble. You are shit out of luck, quite frankly. So if you can't replace certain people quickly enough, and it's not a case of replacing them with warm bodies. When you replace them with the quality you need and the time you need, it's been really difficult. We have been short of certain classes and specs. I would say in Warlords of Draenor, I would say is, given that I've recruited quite a bit this expansion, it's not been easy. So that has been a reason for guilds disbanding that didn't exist on the scale that it has in Warlords of Draenor. And we can go over the reasons for that. It doesn't really matter anymore. We just hope they don't apply in Legion. So it is always sad when any raiding guild disbands any raiding guild, because it's removing some good raiders from the pool of raiders, and there's not enough people coming up through the LFR normal heroic ranks to fill them up. There are some, and there are some who want to do that, but it's not easy because the way heroic raiding works is completely different to the way mythic raiding works, and when you go into a mythic guild, you very often don't get a great deal of time to adapt. You have to be sort of on fire straight away. Now is actually a good time. If there's actually any people watching this who are thinking, well, I'm doing heroic now and I'd like to step up to mythic, now is actually a pretty good time, because a lot of the guilds now, not all, but a lot of the guilds have finished progress. They will generally give you a bit more time to get up to speed, as long as they can see rapid progress. And gear is not as big an issue as well, because, again, guilds are farming stuff. We're not progressing. We're not going to have progress for months. Months. I don't want to say how months. I don't even want to think about it. But it's certainly months before we've got any more progress to happen. And when we get into that progress, it won't be with the gear we've got from Hellfire Citadel anyway. It'll be from, Legion gear. So yeah, now, in other news, slight news, I'm now unleashed on the US forums. I managed to set myself up a starter account, which didn't appear to work at first. It was like, okay, I've set it up in my, account settings. It shows it quite clearly. It's not on my Battle.net what's going on. And it just randomly appeared about a week later. So it takes about a week, apparently. I don't know whether that's normal or whether that was just me. But I'm now there. I can now post on the US forums. I have now made a post on the Retribution Paladin thread. So it's great. I can now be ignored on 2 different continents. Excellent. In terms of other videos that will be coming out, there haven't been as many in the last week because I had a lot of shit at work, a lot of extra things to do too. Sometimes when you're teaching, these things sort of happen. You get certain times of the year when all of a sudden loads of work and then it goes down again. So at the moment it's sort of on a more even keel. I've got a few things sort of planned. Obviously I'll be doing the Retribution Paladin updates for Legion as and when anything new comes out. Plan to do the same with Demon Hunters. Hasn't really been anything for Demon Hunters. There wasn't much for Retribution Paladins, but there was a video there. I have done that video sort of, it was a good opportunity to do it more in line with what people were asking for on the subscriber report. If you're a subscriber and you haven't seen that video yet, I'll put a link there. Do have a look at that. It goes through sort of what, you know, I'm asking for comments basically on the way to do things. So I've sort of taken some of those on board for this video. I'm not saying I will always combine the discussion and the gameplay videos into one, because there are sometimes good reasons for not doing that. One of which is I can do the discussion of any changes on the day that those changes come out, or at least after I've gone to work. You've got to bear in mind, they come out US time. I'm on UK time. So sometimes it might be a bit later. But from my point of view, as soon as the thing has gone live, I can do that quite quickly. Gameplay video is not so easy because I've got to sign up and do a few dungeons. So sometimes, and edit them. And sometimes that can't be done till the next day. I mean, that particular video I did earlier this week, I didn't get to bed like till 1 o'clock my time in the morning doing that. I could have just left it to the next day, but I didn't want to. I had it nearly done. I might as well have finished it off. But yeah, any more comments will be gratefully received. I've had a few so far, and a few of them, they're fairly consistent, which is good. I prefer doing longer videos and then maybe just sort of having a breakdown of where you can find different parts of it rather than a series of short ones anyway. It suits me more to have that rather than lots of little videos. In terms of other ones that I am planning on coming out, well, though, as I say, I may or may not do a Demon Hunter one. I can't really. I'm not going to do it for the sake of it. If there's nothing to add from last week, then there's nothing to add from last week, and I really don't see that there is. I was leveling up another mage last week. I'm just into Draenor raiding now. Leveling. And 2 accounts, it's quite good, you see, because I can have a high level on one account and boost the one on the other account, and I just drag them through dungeons, so I don't have to queue up or do anything like that. I just drag them through them myself. Frost mages are really good for that because you can portal them anywhere, and you know, an ice lance with the glyph that cleaves and just minces through everything. It's brilliant, absolutely amazing. But I was in Stratholme doing Stratholme, and I was noticing a few things that are still in there that I was thinking, well, and there's other dungeons as well I was noticing in these vanilla dungeons that haven't been buggered about. You know, a number of vanilla dungeons have been redone for later expansions when they can't be asked to think of new dungeons. Don't like it at all. Some people like it, all right, fine. I don't. Come up with new dungeons, please, and leave my old dungeons the way they are, because there are things in them that are there for, you know, for me, for nostalgia reasons. But I'm thinking, well, people who didn't play in vanilla probably don't know what some of these things are. Maybe they haven't even noticed. Maybe they have noticed and wondered what they are. So I'm going to do some videos on those as well, just a bit of interest for me, especially coming up to Easter. So the first of those should hopefully be coming out next weekend. Might be a little bit earlier, but I'm not going to guarantee until before next weekend. I'm going to catch up with some updates on the website this week. Certainly the Retribution and the Frost DK, and I don't think the Demon Hunter as well. I don't think the talents with the changes in the last build were updated, so I'm going to do that and tidy up a few other things as well. I'm also going to do the video on secondary stats for Legion in the next week as well. There are changes coming into it, and I want to have a little discussion about how we might deal with secondary stats, how our mindset might be when it comes to secondary stats in Legion based on what we know already. Okay, so until next video comes out, which is likely to be the secondary stats one this weekend, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and if you don't like, don't forget to comment. Until next time, I'll see you later.